right? Remember, Barack Obama said he wanted to fundamentally change America. So, you know, I would ask you and your audience, what do you think that meant, right?
So, you know, you initially supported President Trump because you wanted to support the person who would win against Hillary. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, well, I think that I liked Donald Trump when I first met him. It was supposed to be a short one-on-one kind of meeting, and I, you know, I forget the exact reason why his guys had reached out to me, but I went down to meet him in New York, met him, and I liked him. I liked him a lot because he, it's like what you see is what you get. No BS, tough guy. He actually, if you're in the room with him and there's others around and he's got a decision, even if it's the secretary or the, you know, or the guy that's going to be cooking some hamburgers, if you're in that room and there's something going on, he's going to go, what do you think about all this? What do you think about all this? What do you think about all this? And I like people like that because he wants to hear from everybody. He'll make the decision, but he wants to hear the views from everybody. And so I got involved with him in the summer of 2015. You know, I think it was August. And I'll tell you this one little story about him because it was very impressive for me. It was a little bit later on, but I think it was the first time that I had traveled with him to one of these big campaign stops. It was total downpour in New York. We're leaving the Trump Tower. We'd all met. I mean, it was just buckets, you know, cats and dogs, right? Ran in cats and dogs. And we pulled up a couple of these, you know, black SUVs or whatever. Everybody else, you know, I'm sitting in the vehicle with him right next to him. Everybody else you could see scurrying off to run up into the plane so they didn't get their hair wet or whatever. And there was two guys that were like tarmac guys who were working on the airfield, and they were going to pull the chocks off of the airplane while they're preparing to take off, right? And they're just soaking wet, and it was cold too. And Trump got out of that car, and you know, and everybody talks about his hair and whatever, you know. He walked out of that car, downpour, and he walked over to those two guys, and I was around the corner because I'm like, rain, you know, you're not going to melt, right? So I'm standing there watching this, and he walks over to these two guys and has a conversation with them for, you know, a better part of probably 15, 20 seconds. And, you know, he probably said, hey, thanks for what you're doing. And I saw him pull out a roll of bills, and he gave each one of them something. You know, maybe he gave them a 20, maybe he gave them 100. I don't know what he gave them, but I saw him hand those guys like a tip, you know, in the downpour, and he could have just walked out of his car and walked upstairs and gotten in and you know, and they held an umbrella out for him, right? And he didn't do that. And I tell you that story because there's a human side of Donald Trump that it gets out once in a while, and there's all kinds of crazy stories about him. But when I saw that, I saw a guy that I respected at that moment, because to me, those guys were his employees, or they were employees of that airfield. But he took a minute to say thank you and slip them you know, $20 a piece or whatever, and I found that to be an extraordinary compliment to them, and really a sign of respect for just the working man, and I think that's what's in Donald Trump's heart. That's what I saw. And among other examples that I always look for. I look for those kinds of things because I was raised, you know, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, thank you. That kind of a world, and a family that would respect others. So I was looking to see if he had that, and that was one of those moments in time. And here I am telling you about it, and I could be saying all kinds of nasty things about Donald Trump. Really, I mean, if I wanted to, I mean, I could be the most vindictive person against him for having experienced what I just have experienced, but I don't, because it wasn't his. I don't blame him, or I don't. He wasn't responsible for something that he didn't know was going on. Okay, and now, I mean, I felt that I knew, and now we all know. Now we all know, and. It's a very dangerous thing for this experiment in democracy that we are sort of still working our way through, and we're in another moment in history that is that was identified by the original founders of our country. What we're experiencing right now, they had the incredible vision through the Adamses, the Jeffersons, the Lockes, you know, the people that were part of creating this great document that has withstood a lot of tests, and we're in the middle of another one of these big tests, and I'm confident that we'll get through it, but not without a lot more sacrifice.
You know, this is kind of a